Welcome to Life Beyond B.S, where we ditch the belief systems and the bullshit and get real about life. Here it's about awareness, choice, and creating joy that actually lasts. No perfection, just honest talk and powerful change. I'm your host, Heather McNally, and let's get into it. Hey, friends, and welcome back to Life Beyond B.S. I'm your host, Heather McNally. Today, we're talking about something that is absolutely essential to all people, to being human. That something is shaping our emotional health, our physical health, our sense of belonging, and even our sense of purpose. Today, we're talking about connection. The truth is, we're living in a time where people are more connected technologically than ever before. Yet so many people are feeling profoundly alone. People are surrounded by notifications, messages, group chats, social media, but still feel unseen. They still feel misunderstood, still feel like they don't quite belong. And I think that many of us are asking quietly the same question. Why do I feel so disconnected even when I'm surrounded by people? Today, we're going to explore that. We're going to talk about what real connection actually is, why we're experiencing such deep disconnection in this modern life, how connection impacts our nervous system and our well being, and most importantly, how we begin rebuilding meaningful connection again. But before we dive into all of that, I want to name something important. When I say connection, I'm not talking about surface connection. Not small talk, not social media, likes, follows, and comments. I'm talking about real connection. The kind where someone actually sees you. The kind where you have honest conversations, where people listen, not just wait for a break and then it's their turn to talk. The kind where you can disagree and still hear and respect each other. The kind where people pour into one another instead of competing with each other. Here's something that's really interesting about the world that we're living in right now. We've never been more digitally connected, like I said, and yet people have never felt more alone. You may have heard that we're actually in an epidemic of loneliness, said by the Surgeon General of the country. Please understand that connection isn't just something that feels nice. Connection is something our brains, our bodies, and our nervous systems actually require in order to thrive. Without it, we don't just feel lonely, we begin to break down. Human beings are wired for connection, not just emotionally, but biologically. Our nervous system is literally designed to co regulate with other humans. When you feel safe with someone, when you feel seen and heard and understood, our body actually responds in powerful ways. Your heart rate will slow down, your breathing deepens, and your stress hormones lower. The brain releases oxytocin, often called the bonding hormone. Connection tells the body, you're safe, you belong. And when that's missing, the opposite happens. Loneliness and isolation activate the same stress responses in the body as physical danger. In fact, research has shown that chronic loneliness can actually increase the risk of heart disease, depression, anxiety, and even shorten a person's life. Which means that connection isn't just a nice extra in life, it's essential. It's a human need. Connection is not optional. Our brains and bodies are literally designed to function in relationship with other people. Your nervous system is constantly scanning your environment, asking one question. Am I safe right now? If your brain senses danger, your body shifts into survival mode. Your heart rate increases, and I'm sure you've been there and felt that. Your breathing becomes shallow. Your body prepares for what? Fight, run, or freeze. That's called the sympathetic nervous system. And that's what controls you when you're in that. When you're with someone who makes you feel safe, seen, and understood, your body shifts into the parasympathetic nervous system, sometimes also called the rest and reset or restore system. Your breathing slows. You get deeper breathing. Your muscles relax. And I know I hold my attention in my shoulders and my neck, and you may hold yours somewhere else. Your heart rate will stabilize, and your body literally starts receiving the signal you're safe. Connection helps your nervous system move out of that survival mode, that fight, flight, freeze mode. And when that happens, your entire body begins to function better. And this is something I work with people a lot in my coaching and inside my program of Happy, Healthy, Whole. Because many people don't realize that their nervous system has been living in survival mode for years, or how to regulate their nervous system. If you grew up in environments where you didn't feel fully seen, heard, or safe emotionally, your body learns to stay guarded. And I can tell you that from absolute experience in my own life of being in an abusive environment. I never felt safe. I was always trying to hide. I didn't want to tell the truth. I didn't want to share because I was terrified. My nervous system was up in arms. And when your nervous system is guarded, connection can feel uncomfortable, even when you desperately want it. A big part of the work that I do inside my Happy, Healthy, Whole program, and also in coaching, is helping people understand how their nervous system works so they can start creating relationships that actually feel safe and supportive. Another thing that happens when you truly connect with others is that stress hormones decrease. The main stress hormone in the body is cortisol. Cortisol is helpful in short bursts. It's what helps you react quickly if there's danger. But when your cortisol level stays elevated for long periods of time, it literally begins damaging the body. Chronic stress hormones can lead to inflammation, which we all know is the cause of most disease. Weakened immune system, digestive problems, sleep disruption, anxiety and depression, and memory problems. Unfortunately, in our society today, we have so many stressors that keep our cortisol levels high. Those include things like work, where we can stay stuck in work mode long after the day is over because of the ability to work from home. It includes digital overload, that internet, the phone, the things that we can click into all day long. It involves people pleasing and even current global events. Connection helps lower cortisol levels. So it's important to take the time to step away from stressors and purposely seek connection. In other words, healthy relationships literally calm your body down. When we feel safe and connected, the prefrontal cortex of the brain works better. Now, that's the part of the brain that's responsible for things like decision making, emotional regulation, empathy, problem solving, and creativity. We want those things. But when we feel isolated or threatened, the brain shifts energy away from the prefrontal cortex and towards survival areas of the brain. This means that when you feel disconnected, your brain is not functioning at its best. Connection literally helps your brain think better. Earlier, I mentioned oxytocin, a powerful hormone involved in connection. Oxytocin sometimes is called the bonding hormone or the love hormone. It's released when we experience things like hugs, physical touch, eye contact, emotional conversations, trust, and feeling understood. Oxytocin reduces stress, increases feelings of trust, and strengthens emotional bonds. It's one of the reasons that a heartfelt conversation with a close friend can leave you feeling so much lighter. Your body is literally releasing chemistry that says you're not alone. The need for connection actually starts the moment we're born. There were studies done in the 1940s by a psychiatrist named Renee Spitz, who observed infants in orphanages. These babies were given food, they were kept clean, their physical needs were technically being met, but they were not held, cuddled, they didn't receive consistent human affection, that connection. Many of these babies actually developed something called failure to thrive. They stopped growing, they became emotionally withdrawn, and some of them even unfortunately died. Not because they lacked nutrition, but because they lacked connection. Human beings need connection in the same way we need oxygen. There's another important piece of research on this. A large meta-analysis by researcher Julianne Holt Lundstad looked at the health effects of loneliness. She found that chronic loneliness can increase the risk of early death as much as smoking 15 cigarettes a day. Like, wow, think about that. Loneliness isn't just emotional pain, it's a health risk. Humans are wired to survive in community. Without connection, our brains interpret isolation as danger. Now, here's something else important. There's a difference between interaction and connection. Interaction's easy. We do it all day long. Hey, how are you? Good, how are you? Busy week? Yeah, same. Those exchanges are polite, but they rarely move beyond the surface. Some people even respond with jokes or sarcasm. One I've heard so often is, up, living the dream, and that's where it ends. No deeper conversation, but a little laugh, and that's it. Connection happens when someone feels safe enough to be real. Connection happens when curiosity replaces assumption. And connection happens when someone feels seen, truly seen. Sometimes connection begins with a simple but meaningful question. Instead of asking the automatic, how are you? We might ask something like, so what's been sitting on your heart lately? Maybe, what's been taking up the most space in your mind recently? What's something you've been working through that you haven't had a chance to talk about? Those kinds of questions open a different kind of door because real connection often begins with curiosity, not with fixing or advising, just creating a space for someone to be seen and heard. You might have hundreds of interactions in a week. You get messages, you have meetings, you have group chats, social media, comments. But interaction is not the same thing as connection. And when you ask the deeper questions, remember you're not fixing, you're not advising, you're not judging, you're not listening to respond. You're just creating space for someone to finally feel seen and heard. And this is something I see often with people when they start doing deeper personal growth work. When someone has spent years performing, being who they think they needed to be, that real connection can feel so unfamiliar. Suddenly you're asking yourself questions like, well, who am I actually? What do I really believe? What do I want my life to look like? These are exactly the kinds of conversations that we explore inside my coaching and my Happy, Healthy, Whole program. Because authentic connection begins when you start reconnecting with yourself first. I remember a moment in my life when this really became clear to me. There was a time when I had this group of friends and we did a lot together, like pretty regularly. Internally, over time, I started to realize that something just felt off, like maybe missing. Most of our conversations were very superficial. They were about fun, often about gossip, and just surface level things like the next thing we're going to go out and do together. We were interacting constantly, but we weren't really connecting because the superficial conversation and questions didn't go deep. I never felt like I truly connected with most of the people. It was more about fun, getting out of the deeper moments of life, the fluff. There isn't anything wrong with superficial and fun, not at all. But I realized something that stuck with me. It had been a long time since I had felt true, deep connection with those friends or with some of my other friends. I realized that I was longing for deeper connection, for authenticity, for a place to be openly vulnerable when I needed to, and to be able to be there for others, to be vulnerable with me. And what that moment taught me was something incredibly important. Most people aren't looking for someone to fix their problems. They're looking for someone who's willing to sit with them in their humanity, in their realness. And that stuck with me because it reminded me how powerful it is when someone simply feels seen. And when someone does begin sharing, the most powerful thing that we can do isn't to jump in with solutions. It's to stay curious. We might ask something like, what part of that has been the hardest for you? Or how has that been affecting you emotionally? Or even, what do you think you might need most right now? These kinds of questions deepen trust. They communicate something powerful. I'm here, I'm listening, and you matter. And connection doesn't always have to begin with deep conversation. Sometimes it begins with something so much simpler: laughter. Think about the last time you laughed really hard with someone, that deep belly laugh, the kind of laughter when you go silent and even cry, maybe with a friend, maybe with family, maybe even with someone you just met. That kind of laughter where your shoulders relax and then suddenly the whole room feels lighter. That moment isn't just emotional, it's actually chemical. When we laugh, the brain releases endorphins, and those are the body's natural feel good. Endorphins help reduce pain, elevate mood, and create a sense of well being. Laughter also lowers that cortisol, which is building up in your bodies when you're overwhelmed and stressed. It's not good for you. Physically, laughter increases the oxygen intake in your body, stimulates your heart and lungs, improves circulation, and relaxes muscles throughout the body. Some researchers even describe it as a kind of internal massage for the nervous system, because after a good laugh, the body often settles into a calmer, more relaxed state. But here's the part that's really fascinating: laughter is contagious. Have you ever noticed that? Our brains contain something called mirror neurons, which help us mimic and understand the emotions of others. When we hear someone laugh, those neurons activate, making us more likely to laugh too, even if we don't know why we're laughing. Have you ever walked into a room where someone or a bunch of people are laughing, and though you had no idea what they were laughing about, what caused it, what the conversation is, you start to smile and then break into laughter also? When people laugh together, their bodies release that oxytocin, more of that bonding hormone that strengthens trust in relationships. In other words, shared laughter tells the body, you're safe here and you belong here. And sometimes the most meaningful moments in our lives aren't the serious conversations. Sometimes it's those moments where we're just laughing together. That laughter is going to dissolve your tension, lower your defenses, and reminds us that we're human. Friendship is one of the most powerful forms of connection in life. And something interesting about friendship is that the depth of a friendship matters more than the length of it. Research shows that emotional closeness and shared vulnerability are more important for your life satisfaction than simply how long you've known somebody. You may have known somebody for 20 years, but if conversations stay on that surface level, that relationship may never feel deeply fulfilling. And at the same time, someone you met 2 years ago, but who truly sees you, they can become one of the most meaningful relationships in your life. Friendships thrive on honesty, support, shared experiences, laughter, and emotional safety. A true friend doesn't just celebrate your wins, they sit with you in those hard moments too. If someone has a romantic partner, connection becomes even more important. Romantic relationships are one of the primary ways that people experience emotional security. When couples feel connected, they communicate better, they support each other's growth, they even argue or fight more constructively. But when connection fades, relationships can start feeling lonely, even when two people live in the same home. Real connection in those romantic relationships requires emotional openness, active listening, respect when you're having those disagreements, and shared experiences together. The strongest relationships are not the ones without conflict. They're the ones where the partners feel safe being open and honest with each other. And connection isn't just important in our personal lives, it matters deeply in our work environments too. Many workplaces focus so heavily on productivity, performance, results. And I'm not saying those things aren't important, they matter. But when a workplace lacks connection, something truly important is lost. When people feel disconnected from their leaders, their team, or from the purpose of what they even do, engagement drops, motivation decreases, and trust is lost. Something truly powerful happens when people feel connected, when they feel respected, heard, and valued. Collaboration improves, creativity expands. People feel more comfortable sharing ideas. They support each other instead of competing with each other. A culture of genuine teamwork and connection creates psychological safety. And when people feel psychologically safe, they're more likely to innovate, communicate openly, and work together towards those shared goals. When people feel safe within a team, something important shifts. They're more willing to ask those questions, admit when they need help, share ideas that could lead to true, real innovation. Instead of protecting themselves, people actually begin supporting each other and they look forward to it. They look forward to going into work. And that kind of environment doesn't just create a better workplace, it creates healthier, happier humans. People spend a huge portion of their lives at work. And when those environments are built on trust, respect, and genuine human connection, people will thrive. So, how do we rebuild connection in a world that often feels disconnected? The answer isn't complicated, but it does require intention. Connection doesn't just happen automatically. It happens when someone decides to reach out. That can look like anything from sending a message to a friend you haven't spoken to in a while and saying, I was thinking about you today, to even looking like asking someone to grab a coffee with you. Sometimes it looks like putting the phone down when you're sitting with someone and giving them your full attention. It's so important today. Have you ever been to someone's house where they're like, all right, everyone's phone goes in this bowl? Or out to dinner and someone says, all phones go in the middle of the table. I've even heard someone say, they all go in the middle of the table and the first person who looks at their phone pays for everybody for dinner. I know I've had that experience, and the conversation and connection always flows so much better when the phones are put away. For people who feel introverted or unsure where to begin, connection can start in very small ways. Join a class somewhere. It can be a fun class. You can join a gym. You can attend a community event, volunteer, participate in a book club, a workshop, or a local gathering. Places where people naturally share experiences. Connection grows through those shared moments. Rebuilding connection also means allowing ourselves to be open and vulnerable enough to show up as who we really are authentically. It might mean sharing something real about how you're feeling, or sharing something you've not been called to share before. It might mean asking someone deeper questions instead of just staying on the surface. It might mean taking the risk of saying, I'd love to spend more time together because we feel vulnerable saying that, right? Or I've been feeling a little disconnected lately and could really use some company. Be open, be honest. Sometimes connection grows in unexpected places through shared hobbies and community spaces. Conversations with people who are once strangers. My sons would always say, "Oh, who was that?" when we'd be out somewhere shopping. And I'd be like, "Oh, I don't know. I just started talking to them." And sometimes building connection can even start with reconnecting with yourself. Spending time reflecting, listening to your own inner voice, shutting the phone and TV off and sitting with yourself. Because the more comfortable we become with who we truly are, the easier it becomes to show up authentically with others. I've recently been really intentional connecting to people in my life. I've been looking for and joining communities and events where I know the caliber of the person I want to invite into my life. I have found my worth, I've found my value, and I've learned so much about who I want to surround myself with. I'm choosing who I want to build my life and my business with. I'm looking for those connections of like minded people, people who want to learn, grow, and have those deep conversations. This is something that I find we resonate together. We're drawn to each other. And it's been something that I've been building. And being around those people, it creates more lightness, more light, and more life inside of me, and therefore grows them also. Those connections can change us in the most beautiful and profound ways. I'm enjoying the conversations. I'm enjoying sharing. I'm enjoying the way I feel when I walk away from having had that experience. At the end of the day, connection is not about how many people we know. It's about how deeply we allow ourselves to be seen and then how deeply we can see others. Connection asks us to be curious, to be present, to listen, to laugh, to show up as our authentic selves. Because when we do that, something powerful is happening. We remind each other that we're not alone. In a world that can sometimes feel so disconnected, that reminder matters more than ever. And this is actually one of the reasons that I created Happy, Healthy, Whole. Because so much of what we talked about today, connection, emotional safety, feeling seen, feeling understood, doesn't just happen automatically in our lives. Most of us were never taught how to build that kind of relationship with ourselves, never mind with others. We're taught how to perform, how to achieve, how to keep going, how to push through. But we were rarely taught how to slow down and truly understand ourselves. The way we connect with other people often mirrors the way we connect with ourselves. If we're disconnected internally, if we don't understand our emotions, if we've spent years living by other people's expectations or belief systems, yeah, that bullshit, then authentic connection can feel incredibly difficult because we're still figuring out who we are. That's exactly what Happy Healthy Whole is all about. It's about helping people reconnect with themselves first, understanding their beliefs, understanding their nervous system, and understanding the patterns that have shaped their lives. When you begin reconnecting with yourself, something really powerful happens. You start showing up differently in all of your relationships. You communicate more honestly. You build healthier connections. You stop performing and start living in alignment with who you truly are. Happy, healthy, whole is not about fixing you. It's about helping you remember who you are underneath the noise, the pressure, the belief systems, the bullshit that may have been shaping your life for years. I know it happened to me and it shaped me for decades. When that happens, connection begins to change with yourself, with others, with your life. So, if today's conversation resonated with you, if something inside of you is saying, yes, This is exactly what I've been feeling. You can learn more about Happy, Healthy, Whole at heathermcnally.com. That's also going to be in the show notes. Before you move on with your day today, consider reaching out to someone. Send a message, make the phone call, invite the conversation, because connection is one of the most powerful gifts, yes, gifts, that we can give each other. That reminder matters more than ever. Thank you so much for sharing this space with me today. My hope is that you walk away knowing that you have the power to choose differently. Go live fully, freely, and unapologetically. Your life beyond BS starts now. I'm so grateful you were here today. Remember, your peace, joy, and happiness aren't found in the BS. They're found in your choices. If this episode spoke to you, please rate, review, follow, and subscribe, and share it with a friend. For ways to connect or work with me, check the show notes or visit heathermcnally.com. Until next time, keep choosing you and keep living your life beyond BS.